Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to decode the world of business research. We'll break down how companies go from just a simple question to a strategy that actually works, turning all that confusing data into decisions you can really use. So let's just jump right in with the big question. How do you build success that actually lasts? In a world that is constantly changing, how does any business really stay ahead with the curve? Now, you might think it all just boils down to one single brilliant idea. But here's the thing. A great idea, that's just the starting line. It's definitely not the secret to long-term success. The real key is something a lot more disciplined. It's about systematically understanding your world. I'm talking about researching your market, your competition, and all the trends that shape them. This is how you build a loyal customer base that drives real sustainable growth. Okay, so how do you actually do that? Well, it's not about guessing or just winging it. There's a framework for this, kind of like a map for your whole journey of discovery. And here it is. This is called the research onion, and it's basically our map. What it shows us is that good research isn't random at all. It's a structured process with very distinct layers. To get to that juicy insight at the core, you have to work your way from the outside in, peeling back each layer one by one. And these are the layers we're talking about. We're going to move from the outside in, starting with the biggest questions about how you see the world, that's your philosophy, and we'll get more and more specific until we're right at the center, the actual techniques you'll use to collect and analyze all your data. All right, let's start peeling back those first few layers. This is where you make the really big, foundational decisions about the philosophy and the approach that's going to guide your entire research project. So you've essentially got two main directions you can go. With a deductive approach, you start with a theory that already exists, a big idea, and you test it. You filter through data to see if it really holds up. The inductive approach? It's the total opposite. You start small with specific observations and you build a brand new theory from the ground up. Once you have your approach, then you pick a strategy. Are you going to run a controlled experiment to test a really specific change? Or maybe send out a survey to get some broad feedback? You could even use ethnography, which is just observing people in their natural environment to really understand their culture. Each one of these is a different tool for a different kind of question. Now, no matter which path you take on that onion, every single researcher needs a toolkit packed with key concepts. These help them spot and understand all the weird things they might come across. Let's look at a few. First up, poka-yoke. It's a Japanese concept, and it means mistake-proofing. The whole goal is to design a process so cleverly that it's basically impossible to get it wrong. Think about a USB cable. It only fits in one way. That's poka-yoke. In business, it could be a software form where the submit button stays grayed out until every single required field is filled in correctly. Next, we've got the bullwhip effect. This is a classic supply chain nightmare. I want you to imagine how a tiny flick of your wrist can create a huge, giant wave at the end of a whip. Well, in business, a little bit of hype or just a small bump in customer demand can cause these massive, chaotic ordering swings for suppliers way up the chain. And of course, the market bubble. This happens when prices for something, could be stocks, houses, you name it, just skyrocket. Not because the thing is actually worth that much, but because of a herd mentality. Everyone's buying because everyone else is buying, right up until the music stops and the whole thing comes crashing down. So what's the crucial point here? Behind all these big, complex phenomena, there's often a really simple core. And at the heart of it all is something called hypothesis testing. You just take an idea, an assumption, and you boil it down to a simple testable question. Is this true or is it false? So you've chosen your path, you've got your tools, and you've collected a mountain of data. The final step? What do you do with it? It's all about turning that raw information into a crystal clear conclusion. First things first, you have to understand the type of data you're even looking at. Is it nominal, just labels, like male or female? Is it ordinal, where you can rank things from high to low? Or is it interval or ratio data, where you have precise numbers? I mean, knowing the difference is absolutely critical because it tells you what kind of analysis you can even do with it. Then, we use tools like this regression graph to look for patterns. See, each dot is a piece of data. That line running through it represents a perfect, predictable relationship. The closer those dots are clustered to that line, well, the more consistent and reliable the relationship is. And this whole desire to get all the dots sitting right on the line, that brings us to a really powerful quality control philosophy called Six Sigma. The entire goal is to minimize deviation, to crush errors and imperfections until your process is as close to perfect as humanly possible. So just how close to perfect are we talking? A process at this level of quality has a failure rate that is almost zero. We're talking about a failure rate of just 0.00011%. That's the power of a truly data-driven approach. After all these layers and concepts and statistics, it's pretty easy to get lost. But all of this complexity, it serves one beautifully simple purpose, which is captured perfectly in this quote from our source material. Research is done to capture common sense. It's just about proving what we suspect and discovering what we don't. So the real takeaway here isn't just a list of definitions. It's understanding that research gives you a map. It's a structured way to navigate uncertainty, not just to find answers, but to start asking better, smarter questions. So now that you have the map, the only question left is, what will you discover?